Hello everyone, Daniel Kerr here. So today we're going to be writing some psydub music in the ES2. So this is part 2 of a 3-part series where I'm going to be writing separate individual tracks in the psydub style for the ESX, which has already been filmed. Watch that video, link in the description. Today is the ES2 and next is the Akai Force. The first 10 minutes of this video are going to be in Ableton Live where I prepare the clips. Everything is unrelated to each other, but it's all going to be in D minor, and it's all going to be at 160 BPMs, which is about 80 BPMs really, but we can get more intricacy this way. Let's get started. Okay, I drop piece of operator into the first track in Ableton, change the BPMs. I'm going to be talking very, very quickly. Get a bass line going. One note. Make a clip. I'm going to freeze this. Duplicate, Control D, drag it over to an audio track. It basically renders it. Change voices, change clips. As you can see here, this audio track is set to record audio from the first channel. So instead of freezing and dragging it over, I'm doing it that way here. Add a filter, add some wobble. Make a copy of that as well. Just basically making a bunch of different clips of bass and synth and drums. Drag over Iris for some pads. You can see that I have Iris grouped. That's because I'm going to add an alchemy in there as well and combine the two synths. Grab a preset in the pads or soundtracks actually. Big and lush. Psydub and slower psytrance is a lot of monotony and repetitive techno, but mixed with big pads and echoes and sweeps. You can see I have all those notes laid down. We're freezing that. Duplicate, drag it over. Unfreeze. Change some voices. I'm going to get something in the leads here. Same thing in the alchemy, and what I'm going to do next is open up MIDI effects, and I'm going to drag an arpeggiator into each one of these synths in the rack. An individual arpeggiator, watch. Like both with individual settings. Add some steps, which adds makes alternate octaves. Drag another arpeggiator, a separate one, into alchemy. Now at first right here I can't hear the alchemy and I can't figure out what's going on, so I solo it so I can hear it. If I add some steps, it brings it up. It's bells, brings it up into the higher registers. Playing with the rate there. Find something I like. But I realize this is the pad clip. I'm just going to bring some of these notes over and loop a smaller amount and try to find something interesting here. Add another note. But I'm listening. I don't end up really caring for this that much. It's repetitive, but it's not compelling. What I end up doing is just grabbing the one note. Here. I'm auditioning this with some of the other clips I've already made. I just duplicated that MIDI channel and brought it over to an empty MIDI clip and brought it over to an empty MIDI channel, and now I'm adding a pendulate. Newfangled Audio's pendulate is an amazing freeware synth, by the way. Very, very compelling. Lots of options. Very, very evolving is what I meant to say. I'm gonna grab this arpeggiator, duplicate it, and drag a copy over. Chosen different voices. I'm just gonna start firing things off together, seeing how they sound. Very pretty. Messing with the cutoff, messing with their XY effects. Freeze the track. Grabbed my Junglist kit. This kit in sample form is in the metaforming pack, of course. Create a little beats. Changing some voices, adding some things, getting some louder, punchier, and snappier snares. There we go. I'm gonna unfreeze that so I can mess with it a little. Change some voices. It's like a bass line. You'll hear what I mean. There it is. I'm hearing how some of these clips sound together. Once again, when I drop this into the ES2, it's going to sound even more different than this, and when I perform it with the ESX and with the Force, I'm going to be hearing new stuff. I add a saturator to the drums. I really, that really low 808 hit, I end up removing that later because it muddies up the whole thing. Messing with the bass line. I decided to group that and double it up so I can keep one in the higher register, one in the subs, one with higher nuances and artifacts. There we go. Now that sub, that 808 kick is still in that drum set. Hearing some of these together. Hear that kick? Sounds terrible. And I think I realized that right about now, and I go in there and I get rid of it. Now, much cleaner. Listen to these kicks. I end up making multiple copies of that. See, I'm going to fire these off at once. Set some levels. Now in the drums, the main drum kit, I end up making 2 or 3 copies of that clip, selecting them all and then transposing them to other drums just to make a few varieties of that same drum beat with different sounds. Sounds good. This is where I take a couple copies of these, select all the notes, and transpose them. See. Changing some colors just so I can keep track of what's going on. At this point, I create a new audio channel and I set it to get audio from the master. And I turn the sound off and then I just start firing off different combinations of clips and making like these clips of mixes. Like this is just the synths and the kicks. Get rid of the pads for the next one. the main mix, but because it's 8 bars, I split it into 2. Because it's going to be in the ES2 and it only has 4 bars, 4 bar limitation. So at this point, I freeze everything and I flatten and I try to close the set. Do I want to save it? Nope. Do I want to delete the files? No, I leave them in place. Okay, now in the last video, I didn't show the sample transfer process, and that's because I've already done a video showing the Scratch.Open Electribe editor for the ESX. I have never shown the Electribe Sampler editor, so I'm going to show you this process as well for the next few minutes. Okay, so in Ableton, I go to Samples, Processed, Freeze, and I rename all of these. Once they're named, I open up the Metaforming Sample Pack. And in Stems, I go to psydub triple feature, and I create a new folder, which is part 2 ES2. Open it up. Drag all of my files into the new folder. Then I create another folder and call that mono. That's where I'm going to render the mono versions of the clips, and I open up Audacity. Drag all the stereo files in, the 24-bit stereo. I select them all, and I go to Tracks, Mix, Render to Mono, then Shift-Control-L to export multiple files, and then I choose the folder that I just created, which is mono. And then I render. Once they're exported, I open up the ES2 editor. And I locate in the Metaforming Pack the mono files that I just made. And you can double click these to add them. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to add them in the right order, but I'm going to add as many as I can. It turns out that some of these are duplicates, and once I get into the ES2, I end up getting rid of the duplicates. Now I save this, and what I do is in the Metaforming Pack, I go to Korg Project Files. I'm going to create a new folder called psydub. And inside, I'm going to call this project psydub. Now, in the ES2, when you load it up and save things, it saves it as a specific file name. But you can load them with any name. So I'm going to call this psydub. Okay, that was quick and painless. And now I'm going to drop these into the ES2, and we're going to make some music. Okay, so now we are inside the ES2. Got my samples in there. This is all slices or chops from the full drum break that I made. I'm going to put that bass throb. There it is. Put that in the first, in track 1. Add some of the bell arp. I'm going to add some pieces, some movements to go along with it. We're using the stock oscillator, sawtooth oscillators. Make a new, completely different feature using some different elements, a completely different pattern. Make a copy of that pattern and add some of the things from the first pattern. Just making some variety. Add some pads. At this point, I don't realize that pad I turned it to mono. It starts off with poly 2. It's paraphonic. I don't really care for it that much. As you can see, the entirety of the longer than 4-bar pad clip will play if I mute and unmute selectively while it's playing. this point, I made a soft part, so I kind of take one of the longer, I take one of the more full clips and patterns, excuse me, and I take it down to 1 bar just to get some repetition for a kind of drop. Now, while I'm doing this, I start to realize some things. All right, you can use the modulation to put together some really, really nice variation, and I realized that with the main break, I can do that by pitching it up to 48, which will double the speed of the break, and then using setting the modulation destination to the OSC, as you can see here, and then it fires it off in random spots. There is a ring modulator on those drums as well. Isn't that weird? I think I'm going to do a separate video on this technique only. Trying out different IFX types on the drum beat. Sounds so beautiful to me. Setting the destination to pan. Sounds big stereo field, very trippy. Now at this point I'm just going to perform some of it out and just listen to it. Decide how it's all going to work together when I mix it with the other things. Can't wait to hear this. We're all going to be hearing it at the same time because when I perform with these 3 devices, I'm going to record it in 1 take. So we're all going to be hearing music that, even though I wrote it, I have never heard before. Making variations on that drop area, the quiet part here, like the chill movement. Okay, that all sounded beautiful and amazing, and you can get the Metaforming sample pack, which this project and all of these projects and all these samples and clips and stems are going to be in the Metaforming sample pack. You can get that sample pack or the light version of that sample pack, as well as access to all my exclusive education and tutorials and demos that will never be available to the public at the link in the description, which is ghostwrittenclips.com. Next video is the Akai Force. Like and subscribe so that you can get updated when it's uploaded. Be blessed.